Next thing I knew was I just heard shots ringing out.
Bullets fly just inches away from a 5-year-old's car seat.
What would have happened if that bullet had just gone a few more inches?
A Denver mother sharing her story after her family gets caught up in a drive-by shooting.
I'm afraid to take that same route home from school, and my kids are afraid too.
And Russian forces expand their invasion across Ukraine as an American journalist becomes the latest casualty.
Situation really, I can't speak without tears. I'm sorry, but I'm really sorry for my country.
And help for families and their four-legged friends.
We want to give people the easiest path to reaching their trusted neighbors.
A Marshall fire victim has a new app in the works to alert neighbors if a pet needs rescuing.
A way to press one button and say, do you need help?
Good evening, and thank you for joining me on Denver 7 News at 5. I'm Jacqueline Allen. We begin with a Denver mother and her children caught in the crossfire, a drive-by shooting when she was just driving her kids home from school. She tells Denver 7's Patrick Perez it's the latest example of gun violence on the rise in Colorado.
That woman says she was making her way through this intersection here at Quebec and MLK. Her two kids were in the back seat when they suddenly caught themselves in the middle of a drive-by shooting, one of those bullets making it just inches from her child's car seat. The shattered glass, the hole in the back seat, all a reminder of the close call the family in this car had with gun violence.
It's very hard as a mom to not go there in your head, to think what would have happened if that bullet had just gone a few more inches in the other direction. What would my life be like?
This mother, who does not want us to use her name, says she and her two young kids were headed home Friday afternoon near Quebec and MLK in Denver. It's a drive they always make, except this time mom noticed something was off.
I saw a car driving very erratically, so that caught my attention right away.
Then, moments later, someone pulls out a gun and starts shooting. One of those bullets hit the mom's windshield.
And the next thing I felt was glass just kind of spraying me.
And lodged itself into the back seat just inches away from her kids' car seats.
I yelled for my kids just to get down. Obviously they were screaming and we were all so scared. I tried to sleep on Friday night. I was so incredibly thankful that we weren't hurt.
She says this was not a case of wrong place at the wrong time.
I was in my neighborhood. I was picking my kids up from school timely on a Friday.
Today, the family remains shaken up. Mom is still too afraid to get back in the car.
This isn't fair to the people that live in Denver to have to live with that level of crime that we've been experiencing.
But one thing is certain, it's given her the push she needs to get out of Denver.
We have to leave. I cannot guarantee my children that they're safe.
Patrick Perez, Denver 7.
Tough story, and Denver police say one person was shot in that drive-by shooting. They only had minor injuries, and we have reached out to find out whether anyone has been arrested or if they have any suspect or car description, but we have not heard back. 35 people were killed in Ukraine this morning after a Russian airstrike hit a large military base just miles from the border with Poland. Meanwhile, the U.S. promising more aid to Ukraine, but Putin has warned armed shipments will be considered legitimate military targets. Here's ABC's Alex Prochet with more as thousands continue to flee Ukraine.
A Russian airstrike killed at least 35 people and injured more than 130 at a military facility in western Ukraine, just 10 miles from the border with Poland. Ukrainians say Russian warplanes fired more than 30 missiles. Most were intercepted, but at least 8 struck the facility.
This is the third now military facility or airfield that the Russians have struck in western Ukraine in just the last couple of days. So clearly, at least from an airstrike perspective, they're broadening their target sets.
And in Mariupol, this 9-story apartment building coming under fire by Russian tanks. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz speaking by phone with Russian President Putin, calling for an immediate ceasefire. Tensions between Russia and NATO escalating. Russia vowing to treat all arms shipments to Ukraine from NATO countries as legitimate targets for military action. But President Biden still vowing he will not send American troops into battle.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, that's called World War III.
Instead, announcing $200 million in new military assistance to Ukraine. The new funding will include small arms, anti-armor, and anti-aircraft systems. Meanwhile, one American journalist was killed and another injured when they were attacked by Russian forces in Ukraine.
And we crossed the checkpoint and they start shooting at us.
More than 2.5 million people have fled Ukraine, over 1 million of them children. A senior U.S. official telling ABC News if this continues, there could be 8 to 10 million refugees. Images of strollers lining the platform at a train station in Poland, inspiring more donations to help those women and children fleeing their homes, like 19-year-old Polina and her 4-month-old baby. We heard bombs next to our home, she says. The windows broke. Her husband staying behind to fight. Alex Perche, ABC News, Washington.
And here in the U.S., gas prices are still steadily climbing. Right now, the U.S. average is $4.33. Here in Colorado, we are inching closer to $4 a gallon. Right now, our average is $3.97. The critics argue President Biden could stop the rising prices by drilling more and reviving the Keystone Pipeline. DU economics professor Jack Strauss says that's not feasible. The U.S. is already the world's largest producer of oil, and also drilling is not something you can stop and start overnight.
Ripping Alaska open to allow free time, all-time drilling will take at least 1 to 2 years for them to build the oil rigs, drill the oil, take it to refineries to get to the American consumer. So that's not a viable option.
And Strauss says that the markets were anticipating these sanctions, so prices shouldn't go too much higher than they are right now. How long they will stay this high, though, is anyone's guess. Tomorrow, Colorado lawmakers will hold the final vote on the reproductive health equity bill in the state house. The second vote passed on the bill, and it passed early Saturday morning after just over 23 hours of debate. If the bill passes its final House vote, it will then move on to the Senate, and you can read more about what protections fall under the Reproductive Health Equity Act right now on thedenverchannel.com. This week, there will be a court hearing for a lawsuit against Boulder County that's holding up Marshall Fire debris removal. Now, this suit claims commissioners failed to adequately involve the public in selecting a contractor for the debris removal. The county says it did its due diligence and that survivors will be financially and emotionally damaged by further delays. A court hearing is set for next Friday. If the court sides with the county, debris removal could begin immediately after. When the Marshall Fire hit, families scrambled to save everything they could. Now, one fire victim is working to make sure pets will be safe in the case of another disaster. As Denver 7's Christian Lopez shows us, you could soon alert your neighbors that your pet needs rescuing with a simple swipe on your phone.
This ash and debris are all that's left of David Crawford's home after it was destroyed in the Marshall Fire.
So I was able to get a couple things out, most importantly my cats. And then some books and some photographs, some records, but I didn't really take it too seriously. I could have gotten more stuff out.
But for him, the hardest part wasn't losing the material items.
What impacted me the most was that that there were so many animal lives lost. I'm dealing with having lost personal effects. That's been hard. Right? A lot of family stuff. But what's really kind of crushing for me is that there were several animals in the area.
David did what he could to help rescue pets as the flames approached.
We heard a German Shepherd barking, and we managed to save that dog with my neighbor across the street.
Yeah, Mike's a hero, dude.
But it wasn't enough.
But there were dozens of others within a couple blocks of me who perished. And that kind of left a mark on me.
And now he's making sure the community is prepared in the case of another emergency.
There were a lot of people trying to get in here and get their animals. There were a lot of people making phone calls and trying to reach people who might be here when this happened.
He's developing an app designed specifically to help.
We want to give people the easiest path to reaching their trusted neighbors who can then go and get help. We have the initial mock-ups and we have the flow. We need to implement it, the technology side of things. We need to shape up the interface.
And this is not what the final app will look like. It's just an example of it. It's all still being developed while they also work to pick out its final name. But it's a project David is hoping will help save lives.
all these animals who perished that day because we haven't been thoughtful about this sort of scenario. We haven't really risen to our responsibility to these animals who are completely dependent upon us for their well-being.
And he hopes to have the app all finished by August so that it can help in the case of another disaster like this one. Reporting in Superior, I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
And I know that was the hardest part for a lot of people too. Still ahead on Denver 7 News at 5, Colorado Parks and Wildlife will pay to keep bears out of places they don't belong. And feeling the pain at the pump? A Denver system already in place to connect you with rides.
Saving money on gas is a big priority for Coloradans. One easy way to do that is to split the cost with someone else.
I'm meteorologist Stacey Donaldson. Beautiful weather here across Colorado today. We were in the 60s here for the Front Range and the Eastern Plains, but things are about to change in the next 24 hours. I'll let you know how much will cool down coming up.